guys, it's all of you. Thanks so much for coming today. The idea mainly was to have an evening of gaming. That was Philip's original idea, but I thought let's make a day of this. It was easy to get here on a Saturday. And at 1 o'clock, which I think is just ticked over, the idea was to launch a Kickstarter, which is the next project that I'm sort of embarking on with these guys to sort of capture their life story all the way from the very beginning up to the time they were trying to blitz. So I've got the launch button here. The idea again is that if you do pledge on the Kickstarter last year, we've got some A3 posters which have been printed on the cover of the book, which Philip and Andrew will be more than happy to sign for you guys. We've also got a postcard, which again is a copy of the poster with a little bit more advertising on the back. But I encourage you to buy the rest of the collection. So my daughter is next door with the rest of the collection. Philip and Andrew appear in a couple of the books on the spec.
This is why we ended up talking to each other a lot.
I'm very, very impressed by his books as well.
So I've known these guys, well, we've come on for them many, many years. So what I'll do now, I'll launch the Kickstarter via my phone, because I'm expecting there's a few people waiting.
10k.
It's back in the 80s.
Although, let's just do that as well.
Yeah. He's not connected to the Wi-Fi.
No signal.
No signal.
Well, you can say that.
Yeah, actually, it's not looking promising, is it? You just say it's got a 4G signal.
There's Wi-Fi in the toilet.
Just being needed. Go and launch it in the toilet.
These are rules.
There's an OK button.
You think terms and conditions?
I think so.
Oh, we do.
Oh, it's a little tick box. You have to tick to say you agree legally.
Come on.
There we go. Now you can push it. It's launched. Is it launched?
So the Kickstarter is live. We'll have laptops here. Well, we will have laptops here. We'll encourage you guys to pledge and support this new Kickstarter and make sure it's a success. And then hopefully in a number of months' time, they'll have a book to sort of read through to understand why these guys sort of entered this sort of gaming world. So yeah.
Yeah, great. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the book later on. But before we do that, obviously we've got you guys here about 40-45 minutes. There'll be a chance for questions at the end if anybody's got any. But maybe it'd be nice, Chris, for us to start off with your background, because obviously this, like, as you've just shown, seamlessly on the PowerPoint. This isn't the first book you've written. So what's your background? Obviously you've got a passion for games. You've done a lot. What's
Yeah. So I'm sort of 46 now. So I
Retro.
Yeah, so I've become retro in time. So when I was 13, I had this Spectrum of Christmas. Sort of played games for about 6 months. I'm sure I probably bumped into Philip's and Andrew's games at the time. And then decided to try and figure out how to make my own games on a machine. Wasn't too successful at it, but I beat it away. Had a strong interest. Did it to O-level studies, did a degree in computer studies. Got into the industry programming, but not in the games world, in insurance software and various other business software. And then I sort of remember back in, I think it was 2004, when it was Retro Gamer magazine sort of came onto the scene, saw Ian Smith, and sort of sparked my interest again back in retro. And I also went to the Shogun in Croydon, which was CG UK. Again, bumping into Martin Carroll for the first time, I remember that. Soon after, I think it was towards the end of the live publishing days when things were starting to go a little bit wrong. But so I started to be friendly with the people who were sort of people I looked up to at that point in the scene. And over I think the idea was to do my own show, which I did, called The Retro Ball. I'm sure.
Yes.
And what I did was I didn't know how the hell to publicise this. There was no Facebook, no Twitter, there was nothing. So the idea for Retro Ball came about because we thought we got to link a charity to this. So we thought about a charity for testicular cancer, so we called it the Retro Ball. But I think everybody thought it was some kind of fancy dress and I don't know what the PR for it wasn't that good, but Philip heard an ad that I did, or your wife heard an ad that I did on the radio, and I think she asked Philip to get in touch, and he did, and I haven't got a clue who he was at that point, but he was persistent. I thought it was Blitz, the programming language I thought back in the time, because we were sort of talking to them at the time as well. And then it sort of clicked, and then we've sort of been friends ever since 2005, and I've gotten to know both of you guys quite well over that time. So then, shall I carry on?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
well, at that point, so you met these guys in 2005, did
Yeah.
you've already written some of these by
No,
then?
no. So these are quite recent. So I did a lot of events. I did the Retro Ball, the follow-up, did another event in 2008 as well, a smaller event, a couple of hundred people in Leamington. Started to get to know a lot more people at Archer, who will hopefully will be very soon.
We hope he's on the tape.
Yeah, the first one we did, we had Richard Joseph, the late Richard Joseph attending. We did a lot of music for the Sensible Titles, John Hare, Archer, yourselves, and I think we did a couple of guys from Bullfrog. So and we had David Whittaker was there, Rob Hubbard was there. So all these guys, you know, the clue I was trying to do, they all agreed to put in the name charity, which I think I've used that again and again over the years. If you say charity, they come. Yeah, so, and then I did a magazine called Retrofusion, just out of interest, which I gave away a free issue in one of my first events. Managed to get a deal with Game Station to put this magazine out there. And then some of you guys might have heard of Revival. There's a couple of guys here, Kieran. And we put on two big events, one small event and two big events over the last couple of years. With John Romero coming over from California last year, which people didn't believe until they actually saw him in the flesh. So the idea was to do a book. I love new projects. I got to know some of the Ocean guys, Sam Butler, Gary Gracie, just through the events. And the idea was to try and do a book. Yeah. So I didn't have a clue how to do the Ocean book. I just raised a Kickstarter and just saw where it went. So to my surprise, it was successful. And then I spent the next 4 or 5 months trying to figure out what to do next. So I had Gary Gracie at that point on site, and Mark Jones, Simon Butler, and then it was, I think, Facebook and LinkedIn and various social media. I was able to find other people. I was told I would never get in touch with John Woods or David Ward. They were long-term enemies, so I would never get them. But you find a hook, and then when you get one, it seems to open doors and you get all the others. So Roger Keane, who you've probably seen on a couple of these books, Roger obviously started New Skill back in the day, Crash Staff Antics. And when you get Roger, you get Ollie. So they become firm family friends over the years. And Roger and I sort of just teamed up to do the Ocean book. We ended up in John Woods' mansion in Nottingham. And David Ward came over for the afternoon. So he said it could be done, but we managed to get both of them in the room talking about the old days. Very.
So have a lot of these books come out of contacts you've made through the event stuff, and that's why you focus on these topics? Or?
So it's with the Ocean one, just through 2 or 3 people, and then you try and find more. I mean, with the Ocean one, I think we spoke to about 50 people now. We managed to get most of the management team, and then at the back of the book there's about, from memory, 30, 35 memoirs. So the idea was for them to tell the story how they remembered it. Not always correct, because time has changed people's views of how things happened back then, but the books are very personal. They're not the making of, or the author sort of generating the text. It's from the person's mouth. Yeah, and you do a bit of editing, you make it read, but generally speaking, it's their memory of how things work. So the Ocean book came along, and it took about, I think it was about 18 months to do. We got everybody we needed, and people have come out of the woodwork since, and it could be potential for a volume 2. We'll see.
And these are all the ones that are available. These are available
Yeah.
here, in fact.
Yeah. So the idea then after the Ocean one, had a bit of a break. Revival was taken off at the time, and that took up a lot of time, a lot of effort. Was the guys involved with Batchel. So the idea then was to do a US Gold one as a follow-up to the Ocean one. Well, the idea originally was to do one of the elite systems, and we started talking to those guys, but there was a little bit of bad PR going around at the time with those guys, so we decided to veer away from that, and I messaged Jeff Brown, who lives in Mexico, by the way. I just messaged him, and he seemed to think that he was privileged to be considered for this book. And then the adventure starts again, so trying to find how the company was started, how it was made up, and the names. So that's just been launched about a month ago. The Spectrum books were just pure fanboyism, I think, because I was a Spectre boy.
Right.
And the idea was to do 1, then we said to do 2, and then the third one is outside on a flip book ready to print. So that's going to be that's trilogy. So we'll be going through it. Yeah, and through those books, speaking to Rick Dickinson in this very museum for an academic guy who designed the computers, it's just a privilege just to hear the story. And then bumping into all those programmers, artists, and musicians who developed these games when he played as a teenager, including these two guys. And then from memory, there's probably about 50 people spoken to across the 3 books. We've all got different tales to tell, and some people speak very highly of it, and some people are a little bit more cynical. It was a quick way to make a lot of money back then. It changed personalities along the way.
I don't think I've ever seen Philip so quiet. I
was thinking the same.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It's a respect thing.
Yes, no, absolutely. But we're going to come to these guys in a second. But
Yeah.
before we do, let's talk about them first. Is what you've obviously done a lot of different books. What was it about these guys that made you want to make this your next project?
Phil kept nagging, basically.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
I saw the quality of these books and I was really impressed. We were asked to be input onto these books. We got contacted by another guy, sort of on the internet, saying, "Oh, I could write a book and everything." And I was talking to you because you popped in about us signing some of your other books, and I was like, "This other guy's contacted us about doing a book," and you were like, "You want a quality book? Maybe I could do a quality book."
Would you? That'd be cool.
We live about a mile and a half
We do.
away from each other, so
We wouldn't walk between each of the houses because it's a death road.
I feel
It's a
sometimes
bit busy.
I feel sometimes I go work at your place. And they're quite, it's just stone throw away from where I work as well. Totally different industry. I'm still working in business and you're working in games, and it sort of overlaps then just through this common love for retro in the old days. So
You think you were writing these books and you obviously already talked to these guys, and they were somebody was already approaching them. So it was a really good fit.
yeah, the US Gold one came out, and we saw the quality of that.
Yeah,
and it seemed like an obvious thing to do. This last number of weeks has been accelerated very quick to the point of an idea to actually get the cover design by Stephen Dave. You will know it's the 86 on the Commodore scene. He did many of the loading screens for us.
I was actually very impressed by that, and in fact that he's got 2 of his illustrations on the front cover that he originally did of our games.
Yeah.
So the Ghost Hunters and the Grand Prix Simulator.
Slightly embarrassing we didn't
Three
realise
screens
the same
up.
guy. Hang on, did you used to put
So it's quite nice he snuck that in there.
So Steve's actually done all the covers.
All of the books?
Yeah, all the books have been done by Steve. And to be fair, I didn't know who he was until Steve said, "You're a legend."
Yeah.
I'm a legend.
It's a small little community, must be.
Yeah, so you see this Stephen Day, and it took a while to tweak actually. He was the 86. And now he's a mate, so yeah.
Amazing. Well, look, we started talking about this. Obviously, the book's going to cover the history of these guys and everything you can see on the screen. So let's.
Is
Well,
this
it's
this
a new
the
video.
okay?
You've
Just to
just
say,
done.
so there's 2 videos. There's a Kickstarter video because the time was precious. I did a video for the Kickstarter in very much the same role as the one I did for the 164. Jeremy, who's sitting at the front here, he promised me that he would do me a video, and I think it's awesome. I only saw it for the first time in full last night, so we've integrated that very quickly
Into the password was sitting about
Which is what he'd launched on the website.
20 minutes ago. So let's have a look. I only checked it was running earlier. I hadn't actually watched it.
Quite interesting.
I don't know how you did that, but you did that very, very quickly last week, Jeremy, so I need to thank you for that.
Oh, well, look, we've sort of seen what the book's going to be about, but it would be ridiculous if we've got you right there not to have a chat. So, obviously, we're not going to talk through the entire book, but to find out a little bit, maybe tell us a little bit. Well, let's start off how you began in games. How did it all begin for you guys?
Kids of the 80s, fascinated by tech. It was very sci-fi. It was kind of what was on TV and stuff like Bionic Man and stuff like that. I guess our first inkling of it was the little Merlin at the top right hand corner. I think that was some
The
kind
little
of
red
present.
machine.
The
Yeah, we used to play that when we were probably 8 or 9. It was like a game called Simon, where you just have to sort of follow the patterns and stuff. But it was an electronic toy, and that was kind of the first electronic toy that we had as a Christmas present, and it was quite interesting.
It's about the same time as the Binatone Pong machine. It wasn't the Atari one. It was kind of a knockoff Binatone version. That was put on the family TV, and that was kind of quite cool. A friend of ours, Ivan, we went round his house way too much, and we spent every evening around about 80 on his dad's Apple II. Where is Ivan? Put your hand up. We probably looked around your house too much, didn't we?
I was going to say, you're still complaining about wearing the keys out.
I was playing some classic games, the Night Mission and Pax-Man and things like that. Zork, and that was really, really cool, but we wanted to get our own computer. So computers were expensive. I mean, they were a couple of £100. Our brother bought a second-hand ZX81, and we thought that was cool until we plugged it in, and then discovered that 1K of memory.
You can't do much with 1K.
No, a papery keyboard that you kind of push. And
You could just about recreate a word to P in. You could type in a bouncing ball out of the manual.
Yeah, just. That's iffy. So we decided we wanted to get a colour computer, a Dragon 32. So there's a nice Dragon 32 here. That was going to be £200, and this was the state of the art. This had a real keyboard. That is quite.
Operating system by Microsoft.
32K of memory. It felt and looked like a real computer, although these days it feels like
It's really nice.
Yeah, pass it around because it is funny.
But what was really, really good about that was that it actually had BASIC built in. So that's why the manual's there. We learned how to sort of program BASIC on that machine, and actually the fact that no decent games came out on that machine also helped.
Yeah.
Because actually it wasn't a very popular machine. We thought it would be, but it was a bit too sort of pricey at £200.
And with no games, we had to make our own.
So
you couldn't, because if you had a Spectrum, it was difficult to write your own games, but easy to load somebody else's. Whereas this one didn't have anyone else's games, and actually the BASIC had sprites, so it was very easy to create little Pac-Man and Space Invaders and move them around the screen really fast.
Right.
wow, not that fast.
No, not that fast. But it was theoretically possible. Yeah, I mean, we wrote a few small games on that because, well, we had a computer, but we were a bit.
And one of those games, we managed to do a type-in listing. There is a very funny story. It'll be in the memoirs, but I'm going to say it now because we're here.
No, we'll be here forever.
How many over time?
That's a long one.
It'll be in the book. Okay, it'll be in the book.
It's going to be a big book.
There's lots of funny stories behind all these things. We then, from doing a type-in listing, we were actually getting paid for it. We got a big sort of boost of confidence, and we decided to get a BBC Micro, a classic machine, the best machines ever for learning how to program on, because you start in BASIC, you start really easily, and then you can put assembler into inline BASIC, which is just the easiest way to learn. So
It was so obscure that the BBC, of all people, should inspire so many sort of people to get into games.
did the work.
No, I know.
To be fair.
Okay. Yeah, obviously, they're quite successful now. The base idea.
You started programming these, and actually your first big break, you actually popped up on telly.
We did pop up on telly. Shall we?
I'd love to see it.
On ITV.
Yeah, you're
No,
recording.
you'll see that.
Now it's time to find out who's won our top poll. You should know 3 weeks ago we asked you to design a game and send it in either as a drawing or else as a cassette. Just remind us what sort of special things you were looking for before we make the winners.
Well, it was looking for, obviously, the game concept.
Right, let's meet these guys, shall we? Can we have a nice welcome, please, for our computer competition winners, Philip and Andrew Oliver from Trowbridge in Wiltshire. Where are they? Andrew and Philip. All right. But the thing we ought to do really is take a look at your gaming actions.
So let's start again now.
Yarrow's in top corner, incapable player. So I'm going for Wolves first.
We won't take it through all of those.
Prizes anyway, and I know that everybody will be green with envy. They got a nice computer of their own at home, so we said, why don't you choose another prize? And you decided to go for what's called a high resolution monitor, whatever that is.
The judge there, Chris, he is actually
He is here,
come here, so
He's
he's
running
running
late.
late. So I think he's running a bit late, really.
We're plus the 19 people.
Yeah,
But we didn't get down here.
we didn't get going.
Right, so you did that, but you didn't stop there, obviously. So
No, I mean,
with
that-
your new high resolution monitor, what did you do?
So we were definitely labelled as geeks. I mean, that was live TV when we went back into school on the Monday. We hadn't told anyone we were going to be on live TV. And yeah, we definitely were the geeks of the school then, from that day on. But we were happy with it, we were kind of cool with it.
Yeah, so we went on to do lots of games, and these are pretty much all we did at school. So we'd already done the typing listing. We managed to get Strategy renamed Gambit, published by Acorn Soft, which was the classiest publisher at the time, which was very impressive. We met up with, somehow we managed to get some games published in Model B Computing, which was a magazine but on cassette. They even published my O-level project. It's here. So my O-level project is here on a funny printout with a plotter. And I actually managed to get that thing published, which was really good. And then we went into the sixth form and we were trying to sort of basically start moving around sprites and stuff in a faster way so that we could write fast games. So yes, we've got, actually at first you can't even put graphics on screen, and even if you can plot lines and triangles or whatever, you can't actually put art. So the first thing we had to do is kind of write an art package ourselves.
People have got it so easy nowadays. You just go, well, didn't you use Photoshop? when these computers came out, it was like, well, it's a computer. So
It was like,
it doesn't do anything until you
So now I
make
can
it.
draw it, but then I have to move it. So then separately we did a package where we can kind of move sprites around. And actually, this was a massive breakthrough because once we were able to sort of move sprites around the screen really easily and create them really easily, it was quite quick and easy to start kind of pumping out some games. So we basically started doing a few little games down the bottom, nothing too competitive, but kept the KV, the Killer Pede, and that was going okay, but we got to the end of the sixth form. And I'm on the
This is all still at school.
This is all, yeah. So we were supposed to go to university, and we applied to go to university, and I even got offered a sponsorship to go to university. But our hearts were really in games. We didn't know what courses we wanted to do.
Or avoiding homework.
Yeah.
But on a computer, it's like, I'm doing something constructive.
Yeah, so we didn't want to do that. So our head teacher at Clarendon School said to our parents, why don't you just give them a year out before they go to university? So just take a year out, they'll get it out of their systems, or they'll make a success of it, one or the other. So we basically decided we'd take a year out, we're going to basically spend 24 hours a day making games. We did close to 24 hours a day, to be fair. As our parents will testify, because they're here. But basically we had to get serious. And the thing is, all of these games, we were getting paid £200 a piece. And our dad set us a bit of a challenge, which said, you don't have to go to university, you can earn more than me by starting. So we didn't actually ask what that figure was. I never have done. But
It was more than 200 quid.
Again, we knew that. So there was a trade show coming up in London, so we decided to go along to the trade show with some of the cassettes in a bag and sort of say we've got
We had a good
this
CV.
published. We've got, yeah,
CV.
So we've got this published, and we went around all the little stands, and there was one little stand there, Codemasters, which we'd never heard of before, and in fact they were just setting up. This was their first time they'd ever gone public. And it was little more than a trestle table and a couple of banner stands, literally, with Codemasters logo on. And Richard and David Darling and their father Jim were standing there, and we were basically calling on every stand, so never heard of them, but that's okay. So we got the games out and sort of said, these are the games we make, and just wondering how much you'd pay if we made a game like this for you. To which David Darling said £10,000.
It's more than 200 quid. We were like, are you serious? We didn't. We just like, oh, really?
that's fine.
That sounds like the going right. In our new negotiating.
So, I mean, that moment of David saying he was going to pay us £10,000, I mean, that kind of changed everything. At that point, Super Robin Hood was just a paper design, and I'd basically just taken it out and said, this game, paper design. And that was the first week of September in '86, I think it was. And it went on, basically we went home, and I don't think we even bothered calling on any of the stands at that show. We got in the car, we drove, we programmed and then programmed, and occasionally slept.
But it's like someone sort of offers you £10,000, like sort of winning the lottery, but actually you have to do it. But we knew we could do it. It was just a case of actually doing it before they change their mind. So we've got to like do this as quickly as we can and go back and done it. Yes. So this is what we did. Some of you may remember.
We did have this really neat routine we had for recording sound and then putting it out of speed.
It was very novel.
It was very novel. Nobody else kind of did it back in those days. It was well before Steve Jobs had his Mac on stage saying hello. So we were quite proud of it. So that's why everybody had it every game.
Is your mum in this as well? Am I misremembering that? You're in this.
That's a bit of a spoiler. If you don't mind me saying.
Well, let's just see. So yeah, this was programmed 20 hours a day, literally 20 hours a day for about a month. Let's do it. Wow.
Let's do it again.
I still think it was Simpson.
No, it was you.
No,
Okay, let's judge that. Go on, say, help me, Robin.
Help me, Robin!
you were cracklier back then.
If they were making 10 grand, how much did you charge them for that?
Oh, unfortunately, when we took the game back and we had the master, we were dead proud. We turned up and came and said, no, that was an estimate.
Estimate on royalties.
And we was like, oh.
We knew there'd be some catch.
Yeah, so anyway, they got a letter out and they basically went into the back room, typed up a letter, and it was 10p a copy.
10p per cassette.
And they said, well, it could sell 100,000 because it's a really good game. And it's like, well, they'd only just seen it because before it was on a piece of A4 paper. But they basically talked us into it by saying that their lowest volume duplication run would guarantee, as long as they sold the duplication run, it would guarantee 2,000.
Right.
Well, that was still better than 200.
Yes.
So we reluctantly said yes.
We'd written by then.
We had written by then.
Put their name on it.
We reluctantly said yes, we signed it, and it was amazing. I mean, the turnaround, it went into the shops within a couple of weeks. Back in those days, they had such a slick operation. It went into the shops, it went straight to number one. It sold phenomenally well, the reviews were amazing. And I would say in January and February, we got a royalties check, which was close on, if not £10,000.
So we're well chuffed.
We were well chuffed. But of course, you've done it once, can you do it again? And it's like, yes. Right, we're going to go back and do that again. Same work ethic? Same work ethic. Same everything. So we went off, we did Ghost Hunters in about a month. We did Grand Prix Simulator. Ghost Hunters, not quite as good as Seller, quite good. Grand Prix Simulator though went ballistic, so that was fantastic. And then we did another little game. So the funny thing about Dizzy was that we loved cartoons and we wanted to create the ultimate cartoon adventure, which is why it says that on the front of the box. Maybe not the ultimate back then, because it was a Spectrum and an Amstrad, so they were a little bit colour restricted. But that's what we were trying to do. We loved watching cartoons, Danger Mouse, Count Duckula, Dogtanian, all those kind of cartoons. And we thought, wouldn't it be
And
cool?
obviously Disney. So
Oh, yeah.
quite clearly Disney.
So we thought, wouldn't it be cool to actually sort of use this medium, use computers and use computer games to actually kind of try and create our own cartoon. Sort of fans of The Hobbit and things like that. So we thought setting it in the fantasy world would be really, really good. And we put it out there, and the funny thing was, when we took it along to Codemasters, they were pretty much like, I'm not sure this one's going to go.
But put it out.
Yeah, they said they put it out because our previous 3 games had been massive sellers, and they didn't really like to upset us. And it wasn't that expensive, and it wasn't that big a risk, and they were only paying royalties anyway. So they put it out, so now give it a go.
But it didn't actually sell that well. It was kind of like, The interesting thing though was the fact that when we used to go up to Codemasters, sort of drive up to Banbury where they were based, Secretary would always have a sort of mailbag of stuff and go, there's these posts, well, we getting posted Codemasters. But we opened these and they were all fan letters for Dizzy. It was just really weird. Every single fan, and then literally there was some sacks sometimes, and it was like the most amazing thing. But the funny thing is, every letter was pretty much the same. Absolutely love your new game or whatever, blah blah blah, but I am stuck. So there was always a sort of like, oh, thank you very much for the game, but yeah, so.
And they wanted us to answer these letters.
And at first we were like,
they were the time to answer letters.
Well, we wanted to, because you clearly got a fan, and the kid's written in and wanted to know the answer. So we did actually, the very first time when we only had a few, we were like, oh, we'll take those back and get them posted. And we did. And then the next time it's like, there's more, and then there's more. And it's like, well, hang on a moment, keep doing this. So we wrote down all the solutions and gave them to the secretaries, and they said it was quite a big deal every time somebody wrote in, trying to answer the letters. So, but there was clearly something going on here.
Yeah.
Sorry, did anyone write any of those letters here? You might actually find that we've got a Dizzy fan that actually goes, oh, did you write a letter?
I never got answered. Anyway.
It's up to 30 years.
We'll get to yours.
You said it didn't sell that well.
Yeah, it didn't. So why did we do this? Because the thing is that most games have a shelf life. So you put them out, they sell big when all the sort of clash and zap and people sort of talk about them, and within 3 months, the shop will say, let's stop stocking that. When it sells through, don't reorder.
And you won't ever find that game in the shops again.
But the funny thing about Treasure Island, the previous Dizzy was that it just kept selling, and it was always in the charts. And it was kind of bubbling around low 10 or something, and it just kept selling. So a year later, it's still selling. We're like, actually, we've clocked up a lot of sales now. Actually, we're looking at a Grand Prix simulator type sales here, and actually, it's not stopping. Maybe we should do another one. So we decided that we would do Treasure Island Dizzy. So it's sort of expanding the idea. By then they were putting the best-selling Oliver Twins on the front of our games because we had quite a few good sellers. Graphics by Neil Adams, and I was hoping he would be here today, but of course he couldn't make it, which is a real shame because he did an awful lot of brilliant graphics for our games back then.
Hang on. He generally did touch screens.
Yeah, he did actually. We did all the in-game graphics.
The in-game graphics, well, they're little tiny sprites, aren't they? And they've got to always repeat and copy and stuff. Yeah. So generally, in-game is ours, but then.
Well, it had to be done in Paddy sprites, to be fair. So unless you have Paddy sprites,
it was.
Anyway, so this game, we put this game out, Treasure Island Dizzy, and the thing just went ballistic. Basically, everybody who had bought the original Dizzy, who by that time we must have sold 150,000 copies, something like that.
And it clearly went to number 1, but by quite some significant mark. The sales
just blew everything out of water. So it's like, oh, I think we're on to something here.
It actually made us feel guilty because it wasn't the best game in the world. To be fair, we had a little bit of an issue. I have to apologise in the fact that people go, "Why did it only have 1 life?" And it's like, yeah, actually,
that's a mistake.
Yeah, it's something more than the story, but it was a bug that we nearly finished game. We were just writing it at home, and then we take it up and we finish it. But you only play the game when you're kind of finishing it, putting the finishing touches. And we were trying to work out how the puzzles worked, and we were playing it through, nearly finished, and going, hang on a moment, if you put the aqualung underwater or the wrong side and then die, it floats you back up, you start on the beach.
But you haven't got the aqualung underwater.
You can't swim back to the aqualung because you run out of breath before you get to the aqualung. And there was another scenario with a sort of wave in the tree base. And we were like, oh, good.
So there's this problem, there's this problem, there's this
And
problem. there's
we
this
couldn't work our head around it. We couldn't work out. So we said, well, if it didn't reset and you died, Dizzy's only got one life. If this is so
You'll never learn.
Yeah, these are the tricks you sort of get out to. So it went out, and everyone was going, it's only got one life. So yeah,
Still sold incredibly. I mean, that's a cool
it's sold
solution.
incredibly well, and yeah,
It's sold ballistically well, but we didn't feel guilty.
Felt very guilty about that one.
So, feeling guilty, we thought, well, let's do it properly. We knew we were not a massive thing. We knew when we were writing it that this thing is going to just sort of be a ballistic seller.
We better make sure we have not really bad bugs.
No really bad bugs. Ooh! So I remember when I was drawing this, we just moved into a very nice 4-bedroom house because we had some royalties. I remember laying that out actually and drawing that and taking some photographs, which actually I still can't find. They might be in a loft. When you go in my loft, we're looking for the photo of us drawing this map. The whole game done in start to finish in a month because we just couldn't wait to get it out. And we had to make an awesome game. It is pretty large. It does fit in the 48K spectrum. We introduced the Oak Folk, a whole bunch of characters in his family. Had a dragon, every game's better with a dragon. And some other sort of interesting characters along the way you meet during the adventure. And yeah, the game was...
And tried to make sure that every puzzle that we were thinking of was quite clever. Was quite clever and wouldn't cause a fundamental bug.
3 lives.
Yeah, no, there's 3 lives. The problem
Well,
about
we get a bonus one.
it's like, I'm not saying that all our games are bug free, but most bugs will crash the computer and you know it's a bug and you know it's crashed.
Yeah.
But when you've got a game where you're wandering around trying to solve a puzzle which is impossible to solve,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite frustrating.
it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
So.
So
Well,
we were very
just very quick to talk about, because the Kickstarter for the game wasn't there, but things like, I don't know if you saw at the battle, but that is the original schematic of the entire game. So things like that presumably going to be in the focus and we can actually...
I've already been given 3 or 4 boxes full of stuff.
And he hasn't even been in my loft yet. And I've said, you go up there and get your stuff yourself.
I'm thinking that's a
There is so much.
I've not been in his loft yet.
Yeah, but do take a look at that.
Yeah, it sounds wrong.
Do take a look at that afterwards. It's incredible to take a look at if you know the game, which obviously all of you do. It's beautiful.
And also, fantastic piece of artwork from Alistair Gray on there. I mean, when we saw that piece of artwork, it was beautiful. It absolutely
We hated the artwork on the first Dizzy box. It just went through, yeah. If you remember the first Dizzy box, it's there somewhere, but we were like, oh dear. And we know that ours was pretty rubbish on the computer, but we had reasons, like limitations, and we were artists. Whereas actually, an artist was commissioned to make this file. But that is proper. We were very happy with that.
But actually, the guy, Alistair Gray, who did that, he did a lot of work for Disney. And the funny thing is, one of the original illustrations of Mario was actually done by him. Yeah, they contacted him because of Disney. I was hoping he could be.
I want to make sure we have time for questions for these
Yeah,
guys. So
very,
before
very,
we
very
do that though, obviously this happens. This was also massively successful.
Massive.
Then there were a lot of Dizzy games. You guys were creating a lot, but also you were getting other people involved in that.
Yes, can I quickly go forward? We will. Hang on. Ah! There!
Yeah.
Because there's a slide which says we've got other people involved.
There it is.
Off you go, Steve.
They got other people
Seamless.
involved. But you did. You couldn't turn these around quick enough, could you? So.
No, I mean the success of Dizzy had gone ballistic. We knew that every single one we would write from now on would be a bestseller, but we couldn't actually. I mean, programming is quite a lengthy process.
It was just you two making.
Well,
They're up to number 3. Yes.
We were writing them on the Amstrad and Spectrum, and then the odd one was getting converted to a Commodore 64, so we didn't write them on Commodore 64. So we'd already got used to sort of like having somebody copy our games directly to another computer, and then that sort of went forward on to the ST Amiga when they came out, and Dell is here. Dell's here somewhere, who did a lot of our work. I just saw Archer there. Hi Archer. And yes, so we had, but then there was a case of we were going forward making other games and moving on to other computers, and there were some people who wanted to make some more Dizzy games.
And we wanted them to make them.
Yeah, so Big Red Software and Fred's here.
Who have we got that have worked on some of the Dizzy games here? 'Cause we've got a few. We've got Peter, Fred, Paul, Ash Hogg, somebody's in there, Ash. Yeah, so
these were all people at Codemasters, sort of in and around.
Not all Codemasters. I mean, just some independent programmers as well.
They lived in the area.
Yeah.
At the Codemaster days. I'm sure they spent many hours in those offices.
They did. That's true. So that's the sort of official ones. But then, after sort of about 92, 93, we just found that fans were making Dizzy games, and in fact this is one of the big Dizzy websites, yokefolk.com.
Those guys are
and
as well, aren't you?
Joseph,
Yeah, there's a few of us chatting around.
and they continue to this day to make Dizzy games, and
Really
they,
good ones.
yeah, I know.
Well, we
I feel guilty that we don't play them.
Well, I mean, we left Codemasters, and with us leaving Codemasters, we couldn't really write any more Disney games. But other people started doing it, and we were like, yeah, fine, go for it.
Yeah, and there's a phenomenal number of Dizzy games out there on the sort of Dizzy fan site, yokefolk.com.
Yeah, definitely worth checking out. And these guys are around all day as well, so make sure you nab them. Do you think you're going to have enough to write a book, I guess? It's a big question.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating story. Where does the book go up to? Sort of what period are you...
So we're covering the very early years.
That's the first sort of
The guys I alluded to. So up to a point where Blitz was formed.
Right.
The informative years.
Yeah.
The ones we can kind of take credit for, because actually it's a lot of other people's work. Once you get a company, it's more about their work and teamwork. So, but we did an awful lot of those. Lots of work on those, not a lot of sleep.
So is that
It was actually funny because journalists always used to say that with the money that was coming in, we'd be partying.
Yeah, we didn't have time.
They had no
in his
idea.
bedroom?
Yeah, very nice.
It was literally in the bedroom, wasn't it?
Originally, yeah, there's a nice photo in there somewhere.
It was the first slide.
It's my bedroom.
It was the first slide.
Yeah, it's the first slide. Yes, it was. Yeah, we lived there. Yeah, got my back problems.
But we do have lots and lots of interesting, funny anecdotes, and we're going to talk a lot about how we made those games and the sort of hacks that we did and the sort of
the tricks
of the trade. And also, it will cover a lot of other people's work in and around us, because there are actually funny, well, if you're geeky, funny stories of the things you'd get up to in and around writing games.
But
in
no
the
sex
80s.
parties, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Right, that one.
Oh God, sorry.
Well, look, we've got time for questions, so does anybody have a question they'd like to ask Chris or the other twins? This is your chance to do that. So you, sir.
That might be an obvious question. Just what was the inspiration behind Dizzy, the character itself, the egg, etc.?
Was a big face. Okay, so what actually happened there was we were working on Ghost Hunters and we were quite frustrated, although we had this little running map. The volume of pixels you could move around the screen was limited by processing power, but also you needed to see enough of the screen around you to sort of move around, because we couldn't scroll the screen. The screen's on Spectrum, you couldn't scroll. Unless you're afraid. He was quite clever doing that. So we were limited by size, but one of the things we wanted was we wanted people to connect with the character emotionally. And we were saying all the time the head is 3 pixels high by 3 pixels wide. You're lucky if you can kind of get a nose on it. It's like, so we just thought, well, how big can you make a face and a head so that you can actually sort of see eyes and a mouth and by the time you've then drawn this kind of big head, it's like, oh, I've kind of run out of space now to do my
Just stick the arms and legs on and be fine.
Just stick the arms and legs on, and the fact that it bounces up and down is because when the character moves around the screen, and there are other characters moving around the screen, you need to sort of see, okay, where am I supposed to be focused right now? Especially if you've got attribute flash the spectrum. So we thought, well, if we make him bounce all the time, it sort of just draws your eye to where he is. So that's kind of how he was designed.
I'm sure there was also, I remember seeing something about Disney, and they were saying that all Disney characters have overly large heads because it makes them cute, and you always focus on the head, and babies have large heads and stuff. So it was like, well, stick a big head.
3 pixels by 3 pixels.
Hey, how cute is
It's
that
2 or
thing?
3 colours, it doesn't cut it.
So it kind of came from that, and it wasn't intending to be an egg. It was just
It just ended up looking like an egg.
It just ended up looking like an egg because you got very few colours. Whoops, sorry about that. Yeah, so it was just white, prime colours only, eight colours, and we chose white for him.
I think 8 was a luxury, I don't think I have that many. Okay, next question.
Thank you.
In the original Amstrad Dizzy version, it actually has in-game music, but the other versions don't.
Right, so John Paul Eldridge, who did say he might try to be here today, he wasn't absolutely sure.
He lived a few doors down
He
from
lived a
us.
few doors down from us at our parents' house. He wrote the music, but he wrote the driver with it, and me and Andrew know nothing about music. Really, nothing. So we actually asked him to do the music for that. But then when we converted it to the Spectrum, we couldn't actually sort of do the music, and he couldn't do the driver, so we had lots of problems doing that. And then in future, the Amstrad market was not that big compared sales-wise compared with the Spectrum, so we then were kind of almost, although starting all of our games on the Amstrad, it was always as an eye to, heck, we port this very, very quickly and swiftly to the Spectrum. So that's
There's also a technical reason in the fact that the Amstrad could play sound without too much of a hit on the processor, because it must have had some sort of sound chip. So you could play the music and only lose 10 or 20% of performance. On a Spectrum, to actually get musical notes, the entire machine was running at half speed, because you'd have an interrupt that was actually literally popping the speaker in and out in a very binary way, and it had to just keep it going. So by having music running during the game, you had half the processor speed.
Yeah.
Did you ever get any letters from anybody, from your fans, saying, "Oh, why has this version got music and mine hasn't"?
There might have been in that deep sack.
So we started not answering those ourselves.
So you talked about that because the early games you started off the Amstrad. You've got your wider, you didn't mention it. The way that you ported them over is quite.
Yeah, so what we, one of our sort of secret sources and the way we were able to produce games very, very quickly is there's actually 6 128. Those of you who your computer will know that. But we bought a 664 as our first Amstrad because it had a disk drive, and the disk drive is so fundamental. So we were doing our games on the 664 with a disk drive, and then of course the Spectrum was taking off, and Codemasters sent us a Spectrum saying we really, really want you to do your own conversions, because they paid somebody else to do Super Robin Hood, and it took 8 or 9 months to convert a game that took 1 month to write. So they basically said, please do your own. So they sent us a Spectrum, but there was no way we were going to use that keyboard. There was no way we were going to do cassettes. So this little board, Ivan, remember these?
Not really.
Ivan wired a lot of these
Hand
for
soldered.
us. There's one guy at Bath University, David Jones, not the David Jones from Lemmings and stuff.
Not him.
Not him.
All
David
that
Jones. He actually made one little board, and it was so precious to us that basically we got Ivan, who was studying electronics by this time at Hatfield University. I think that's what the name of it was. Could be, yeah. We basically got him to make a whole load of them, because if the thing went wrong, and by the way, look at it, it's a bit hand wired, so it leaves quite often, and we could basically plug that from the printer port straight into the back of the Spectrum, and then actually we never used a Spectrum keyboard. We basically did load, quote, return, and that's as much as we touched the keyboard beside playing it. So there are keys on there that have never been touched. Really?
The Z and X key, left and right.
There.
There's a one out, I don't know about the other keys.
So you could actually get some really nice keyboards for the Spectrum back in the day.
We did a plus 2.
Over time,
Plus 2, but even a plus 2 doesn't
yeah,
compare with
over
the
time,
Amstrad.
there were better Spectrums and stuff, but we had a system for not really touching a Spectrum, so it worked well for us.
Look, we should actually get a couple more questions. So again for business, yes.
There's one game, Dizzy, Fantastic Dizzy.
Yep.
The
Which
really big
wasn't-
one took a year to write.
Yeah, and it wasn't released for ZX Spectrum.
No. There would have been an enormous amount of work. What had happened was that the industry was changing. So this is about 1991, I think. The industry was changing. Sega and Nintendo had come in into America. They'd started dominating America. They'd come into Europe. Consoles were going into the shops. The games were coming out. They were £30 a cartridge, but actually people were buying consoles, the Master System and the NES. But actually, it wasn't because they were here so much that we'd gone to America and we'd gone to a trade show, CES in '89, and we couldn't believe the size of the market. And we're looking at these games, and Super Mario.
It was the original Super Mario.
Was there sort of on the stand and being played and stuff, and we were looking at that going, we could write that easily, take a couple of months, and we really genuinely could. I mean, I can prove that. We wrote one very, very similar. But we were like, how much are they selling this one for? And it's £30 to customers. We're like, whoa! It's like our games are like really, really cheap compared with that. And it's like, how many they sold? 28 million. I think by that time they were about 21 million or something. When we heard that figure, it's like, we got to get onto Nintendo. And so that's where we basically changed. And our first sort of big game was Fantastic Dizzy, which did take a while. There's the map there. of us working on it. So actually, that dates when we made it, but that took about a year to write. That game. But we thought
256k cartridge.
Yeah,
so it was quite big.
It was quite big, and we also thought that if you're going to charge £30 for it, you've got to do big. So that took us a year to write.
So when most other programmers in the UK moved to the SD and Amiga, we moved sideways to the Nintendo, and effectively we wanted to make a really big, impressive Dizzy game, and we actually took all the other Dizzy games and we tried to work out how to sort of mash them all together.
And then put in some sub-games.
So yeah, so Bubble Dizzy, and Dizzy Down the Rapids, and various other minecart Dizzy chases and stuff, are all in this one big game that took ages. But we did get an award, and I should have brought it here. We've got a very big gold statue from the official Nintendo magazine for the best.
It was from somebody official, but it wasn't Nintendo.
No, they weren't happy. No, so it wasn't the official. It was the unofficial but best-selling Nintendo magazine because we won Best Adventure Game up against Zelda. So that's, I mean, we would chuffed to build a trophy, but to know that we did Zelda.
Nintendo wasn't very happy because Codemasters hadn't gone via Nintendo to publish this cartridge. They'd done it themselves and made the cartridges in Leamington.
Yes, so we reverse engineered a console, which you're not legally supposed to do. But we did it legal.
Wow.
There's
there was a court case over that one.
which was one. I'd like to see you reverse engineer a console nowadays. With a Nintendo, you whip it out and go, oh, it's got 6502, and you go, actually, it's a Commodore 64 in a box.
Right.
Yeah, it was very similar to Commodore 64. Yeah.
Great. We'll have time for one more question. Obviously, you guys are here all day. People get
Quite busy.
You are. That is. We'll try to squeeze as many of you in as possible. One more question from Andy.
Yeah, just say, you said you got a BBC Micro earlier on, and I grew up with that at the year I got. Obviously, I appreciate they were expensive, not everyone had them, but would you like to have seen Dizzy on the BBC Micro?
So, writing games on the BBC, we just found that most people were selling games at £10 or above. We'd had Sentinel, we'd had Elite, we'd had Revs, we'd had Repton.
They were incredible
and
games.
we were like looking at these games going, there's like a program like that.
I mean, the funny thing is, I think we spent our time programming Spectrum and Amstrad games, but playing on the BBC, because we still had the BBC. So you're playing Revs or Elite, sort of in your downtime, and then working on it on the Spectrum. And I didn't know, we did just keep the two separate and somehow felt that...
Well, the thing is, we had actually written one of our first arcade games, which was Cavey, on the BBC, and it wasn't in the league of Revs or Aviator or Elite or anything like this. So we took it around all the publishers, and just nobody was interested. They were like, if there was a budget market, we would publish this. But on BBC, there was no budget market. So in fact, we only discovered this recently when we were doing a Let's Play video, because we've done a YouTube channel, we're getting really down with kids now. So we've done a Let's Play sort of Oliver Twins channel on YouTube, where we basically go and have a look at our games and why did we work, why did we write it and everything. And there was a discrepancy on the dates, and actually we got to the bottom of the discrepancy on the dates. We wrote it whilst we were in the sixth form, but it wasn't until we were quite successful with a bunch of other games on the Amstrad that a publisher would even take it off us and try releasing it on the BBC. So it was over a year later that the thing got released. So that's why we didn't do games on the BBC. But BBC's awesome machine, and some of the games on it were scarily awesome. To the point we decided to go where the competition hasn't gone.
Right, look, so 4 o'clock, we're going to get you guys back because you're going to be revealing this mystery about Dizzy that you've been teasing.
There is a mystery Dizzy.
So you're back here at 4, but Chris, just again before we wrap this up, just remind people about the Kickstarter and we can find you.
Okay, well the Kickstarter's live now. It'll kick off at 1 o'clock. So
if you got smartphones,
there's some smartphones, there's some laptops around the place. If you can show us that you've pledged, more than happy to give you a map and a postcard, and these guys will sign for you. Thank you for your support.
And there's some great packages on there for different levels on the funding.
Yeah, so we'll probably, I'm on holiday on Monday, so I won't be around for a week, but we'll keep adding stuff to this. So the banner stand, which you can see here, is one perk that Philip and Andy will sign. They've been ever so kind as to offer to bring a few guys into the studio for a day and show them.
See how games are made these days.
Sky Saga is made.
It's changed a bit.
It has changed.
There's a big team on that.
And then if you do one of the other perks, they'll even take you for a meal and talk about the old days. With the hotel stay.
Was talking.
Yeah. And I'll say the reveal later on this afternoon. Maybe we could do something around that as well. So that's not actually on the Kickstarter yet, but we will look to add a few things over the next sort of 4 weeks.
Great.
And just in case anyone does have to go, I would like to say, please stick around because we do actually have gifts for you, but we can't give them to you yet.
Until we tell you what it is.
That's right.
And food.
And food later.
Yeah.
So don't shoot off with it.
Stick around for free stuff and food. But in a few minutes we're going to have Archie here. We're going to go and chat with him. But for now, please put your hands together for Chris.